The Carolina Panthers have finally addressed two of their biggest needs that they've needed to address for probably 2+ years. For as long as I can remember, ever since they've had Cam Newton, they really haven't been able to protect him consistently. They had one pretty good season in 2015 where they were able to protect him. They've had moments where they've been able to protect him, but they haven't been able to protect him with any consistency. And they've also had some inconsistencies in terms of their edge rush. In certain seasons, they've had great ability to get after the quarterback, but most of it has come from their interior players and not necessarily their edge rushers. The Panthers finally address those two needs: pass rush and protecting the passer. It's Mitch here of the Bottom Line View. Gronk, like the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Let's get into my draft analysis, my draft grade for the Carolina Panthers in 2019. I love the Brian Burns pick right off the bat. First round, loved him coming into the draft. He was my third overall edge rusher, and I think he could be the best pass rusher of this entire group because of his unique ability to bend around the corner. I think he has the best bend in this entire class to dip his shoulder, get around the tackle, and make a play, whether that's a strip fumble or a sack. Brian Burns has it. Brian Burns has athleticism. He has speed. He has quickness, and he is a perfect fit for this Panthers defensive line and scheme overall defensively. I mocked him to this team, and I really felt strongly that he would be a great fit. And obviously, Ron Rivera and the front office of the Panthers felt the same way. And I think that was a perfect fit for them in the first round. Now, he might not be a great initial run stuffer. He's not a great run stuffer at all. He struggles in that area of the game. And I think it would help him to be a rotation player early in his career to just be able to get better in that facet of the game. And I think having a head coach like Ron Rivera is really great for him because Ron Rivera is a former linebacker in the NFL. He understands that aspect of the game, being a front seven player in his past and being able to teach those sort of things even at a head coach position. I think that could help Brian Burns quite a bit and help quickly develop him into more of a well-rounded defensive edge player. Like I said, the pass rush early won't be an issue because of his pure athleticism, but the run stuffing will be a bit of an issue. Also, his size, hopefully he can keep his size, but I'm not worried about his athleticism whatsoever. I just want to see him go out there and destroy people. Now you look at what the Panthers have done in terms of their defensive line, and I think they've formed their best defensive line in a few seasons. They have Quan Short and Dontari Poe on the inside. They have Bruce Irvin, who I think was a very underrated add for them in terms of a rotationary guy. You can rotate with Brian Burns. You have Mario Addison, who was a 10-sack guy last year, but he's a pretty consistent edge rusher for you. So Mario Addison, Brian Burns, Bruce Irvin, these three guys on the edge are going to be a great rotation. You have those two guys on the inside. I think this is the best defensive line pound for pound that the Panthers have had in quite some time. Yes, they lost Thomas Davis. What did they do in this draft? They added Christian Miller. Now, Christian Miller is an interesting pick for the Panthers because he's in a different mold than what the Panthers would typically pick at the linebacker/end position. He is a hybrid. He's more of a player that you would traditionally see on a team like my Patriots or that sort of team where they don't necessarily have this traditional 4-3 scheme and the way that they play, but it's more of a, okay, he can play a little bit of linebacker, but he can also play a little bit of end, but he can also do this and that, and he can blitz a little bit. And so it's a versatility guy. He's kind of a chess piece, something that the Panthers really haven't had since I can remember under Ron Rivera. They really don't have that guy. I mean, he can do everything. He can, like Luke Kuechly, he's a linebacker. Shaq Thompson, he's a linebacker. Mario Addison, he's a defensive end. Dontari Poe, he's a D-tackle. They have set roles for their players. And the Panthers traditionally haven't had these chess piece kind of guys who can play multiple different positions, which I think is interesting. And I want to see how that develops with Christian Miller. Not only can he fill in as a linebacker on first and second down in running situations, but he can also potentially come in as an edge rusher if you need him to. He can blitz if you need him to. He can play in coverage if you need him to. So I think that's a very solid break of the mold and addition in the middle of the rounds for the Panthers. Those were their two defensive picks. I think they were both very sound. Now, I would have liked to seen them address the safety position. Maybe they have more faith in some of the younger players that they've drafted in recent years, with Rashawn Golden at safety, who they picked, I believe, in the third round a couple of seasons ago. So they could have had Eric Reed and Golden possibly as their safety combination. They still have Denoris Searcy, who knows if he'll stick around through training camp. They have Colin Jones, who's mostly a special teamer. It would have been nice to see them add a free safety in this draft, possibly in the second round, third round, but instead they go to the offensive side of the ball and they address the tackle position with Greg Little. Now, I came and I said very boldly and I said soundly that the Panthers do not need a tackle early in this draft. But when you get a player such as Greg Little in the second round, who I think is a very solid player and has a lot of talent that transitions to the NFL very well in terms of his strength, his ability of the point of attack. He's a very big guy. He's just a strong guy. And I think he could potentially really help this offensive line because he allows versatility. Whether he plays right away or not, maybe they develop him. Maybe they have Taylor Moton play left tackle for a season and then Greg Little comes in, or they have Darrell Williams play right tackle or left tackle this year and then Greg Little comes in, because Darrell Williams only on a 1-year contract, so you got to remember that. They did address Matt Paredes at center during the offseason, so this offensive line's already a lot better because Darrell Williams was hurt a lot last year. So they get him back. They get Matt Paredes at center. They already have Trey Turner at guard, who's a good guard. Greg Little, potentially, if they could start him, maybe even move like Moton to guard, that would be very interesting to see. So I'm intrigued to see what they do with their offensive line. And even a guy like Tyler Larson's not a bad backup center, backup interior player that they have. So overall, the Panthers, like defensive line, offensive line, it's already a lot better than last year. And remember, this team with a healthy Cam Newton was a good team. They were a team that was competing for a playoff spot. So I think there's a lot of kind of promise with this Panthers team. Now, I'm not going to say that they're going to go to the playoffs for sure or anything, but like they're interesting, and I could definitely see them making their way back to the playoffs. Now, another big pick I want to kind of touch on is Will Grier. And Will Grier, if you guys have been following the channel, I'm not a fan of Will Grier in terms of being a starting quarterback. But he went to a team where he's going to be the backup for sure unless Cam Newton gets hurt. And to me, that's solid. I think Will Grier is probably going to end up being a career backup. And for the Panthers, that's not a bad thing. He is probably better than Tyler Heinicke. He's probably better than Kyle Allen. So Will Grier going to the Panthers, not a bad thing. Now, he's totally different from Cam Newton. He does not have a strong arm. He is not a good runner, but he has touch on the football. He's pretty accurate. He's definitely a winner. He's a great attitude kind of guy, great character, and that's the type of guy you want behind your franchise quarterback. He's going to push Cam, but he's also not going to be physically capable enough to be able to take his spot necessarily. So he's going to win you some games, I think, if he needs to come in, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to ever be a full-time starting quarterback. That's just my opinion. Maybe they like him more than I do, and I know some people like him more than I do. Overall, I really like the Greg Little and Will Grier selections. Jordan Scarlett's an interesting pick at running back because the Panthers never really had a backup running back last year. McCaffrey played a ton. Over and over and over again, you would see Christian McCaffrey on the field. Scarlett is not like Christian McCaffrey. He's not a pass catcher. He barely caught any passes in college, but he is a power runner, and I think a nice compliment to Christian McCaffrey. His running ability is what got him on the team or what they drafted him for. And they also drafted another right tackle with Daly in the later rounds in the draft, so they add some more depth there with their 2 tackle picks along their offensive line, which was much needed. Overall, man, I think this was a good draft by the Panthers. I would have to give the Panthers a A- for their draft. I think they addressed most of their biggest needs. I would have liked to have seen them address the safety position at some point in time. But I think they did a great job of addressing both of the main aspects of what their identity has been, which is their offensive and defensive lines, and continuing to do that forward. I also really like the chess piece of Christian Miller as a pick, and I think Will Grier was a huge need for the Panthers that kind of went under the radar as a backup quarterback, but that could end up winning them a couple more games this year if Cam Newton is injured. All right, guys, that's my thoughts on the Panthers A- draft for 2019. Let me know in the comment section, do you love it? Do you hate it? Gronk spike the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. It's Mitch here of The Bottom Line View. See you next video. Peace.